around here should stop making excuses for him.
Terry Glenn in trouble again. Is it time for the Pats to cut him loose?
You know, I had invested a lot in the team. You know, that was my blood there, too. You know what?
We got a fix for your tuna craving. One-on-one with Bill Parcells. Is a prominent East Coast baseball player on the verge of coming out?
I actually know who the player is.
Don't miss this.
This is Sports Final with Bob Lobel.
Hi, and welcome to Sports Final. We think we've got a pretty entertaining and informative show for you tonight, but when have we said otherwise? And we're going to test your brain power late on this sports night. Can you figure out the appropriate caption for this picture? If you can come up with the appropriate caption for this picture, email us at 4sports@wbz.com. Include your name and phone number. The first one with the correct caption gets a WBZ Sports jacket, like I'm holding. Employees, relatives of WBZ, and associates of Sports Final are not eligible. You can win one of these babies if you're the first to come up with the appropriate caption for that picture. We'll announce that later on. Enough fun and games, because once again a Boston athlete is in the news for all the wrong reasons, and it's an athlete who seems to be involved in this type of story way too often. Terry Glenn was in a Rentham courtroom Wednesday morning pleading innocent to a charge of assault and battery on the mother of his 5-year-old son. His lawyer claims Glenn never struck the woman. Odds are they'll come to a settlement before it ever gets to court, so we may never know what happened. But with or without a conviction, the charge could cost the receiver some serious money because of behavior clauses in his new contract. So what about Terry Glenn? Apparently, for those who know him, these problems are not surprising, according to the Globe's Will McDonough.
When the scouts went in Ohio State and talked to John Cooper and his staff to get an idea what Terry Glenn was like off the field, he told them this. He said, Terry Glenn's a very good football player, but he doesn't really like football. And he won't play when he's hurt, and he doesn't practice hard. But he's a talent, so you're going to have to manage him when he's not playing. They knew that, but they still drafted him. So everybody said, oh, let's get rid of this guy. You can't get rid of the guy. To get rid of the guy, his bonus, which he got paid a big bonus last year, even though he hasn't got most of it yet, that rolls right away to next year's salary cap.
They want you to cook the dinner. At least they ought to let you shop for some of the groceries. Okay?
People misrepresent what happened when Terry Glenn was drafted here in the first pick. Bill Parcells didn't know Terry Glenn from a hole in the wall. He just knew what he wanted to do in the draft. He wanted to go in another direction, drafting the defensive player first, then going down and getting a wide receiver later on. You know, it wasn't anything personally about Terry Glenn. In fact, they had a great relationship here.
She's making progress, yeah, I think. Shouldn't be too much longer.
When Bill Parcells left New England and went to the Jets, the next year, I believe, they beat the Jets. The Jets beat the Patriots in sort of an upset down there. And Terry didn't play very well. And after the game, when they shook hands in the field, Bill said to him, you're better than that. What's wrong with you? You better start playing football. And this is, he's coaching the Jets, and he's telling Terry. Terry, the next week, went on and caught 6 or 7 passes against somebody and wrote Bill a letter. What do you think about that? You know, so that's the kind of relationship they have, and they would still have. But it's not Belichick. It's not the coaches he's had here. It's not Pete Carroll. It's Terry Glenn. And nobody's going to change Terry Glenn except Terry Glenn. He's got to get his act together. If he wants to become the player he should become, the player that should go to the Pro Bowl almost every year with his talent, then he's got to get his act together and decide he wants to be a football player.
And Larry Johnson of JohnsonEditions.com offers this cartoon tonight. Terry Glenn, 4th and very long. Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe and the Sports Writer of the Year nationally joins us. Please, modesty does not suit you. And Steve Burton.
So let's not even go there.
Okay, well, you know, the proper introduction. But don't pull on his modesty.
I'm sorry.
You know, you get what you deserve in life. And that's... Does Terry Glenn get what he deserves in life? And what's that going to be?
He seldom does, and that's the problem.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, he has gotten this far doing it his way, hasn't he? He's a rich, successful, to a degree, not as successful as he should be, which is, as Will McDonough pointed out, but he still has gotten this far. If he can hold on to the money that he's earned, then you have to say he did it his way, don't we? And we can lament that he doesn't want to be a football player, and there's nothing wrong with not wanting to be a football player unless you're taking money to be a football player. And how can we contradict anything Will said there in terms of what Terry Glenn could be and ought to be and is? And it's a total mess.
Here's the deal. You can't find him. Nobody knows where he is. And I think I know where he is because I think he's at home in his house. Probably
Watching the show.
Probably is watching the show. His teammates haven't seen him. The coaches haven't talked to him. The owner hasn't talked to him. Nobody knows where Terry Glenn is.
Where's his representation? If there, I mean, this is beyond bad that he has not contacted either Bob Kraft or Bill Belichick. It's beyond bad. It's just ridiculous. What does he think he's going to accomplish with this? How is this a reasonable and productive tactic on his part? It doesn't make any sense at all.
He is not a reasonable and productive person when it comes to dealing with these kinds of situations.
Well, we've established that. That's true.
So what can you expect? This is what you expect. It's flight or fright or whatever the case may be. But he's running away. He's hiding. He's going away. This is his way of dealing.
And he's hidden before, Bob. You know, a couple years ago when Terry Glenn got hurt, he had to have the x-rays done. He went home, hid in his room. The coaches had to go to his house, knock on his door. His girlfriend let him in the house, let the coaches in the house, and he still did not come out of his room. He had to talk to the coaches. This is according to Will McDonough.
Well, this is the worst case scenario because without any question, he's one of the three most important people on this team, along with Drew Bledsoe and Lawyer Malloy. He is one of the three most important people on this team, and in a position where it's like him, and then we drop way down. I mean, they need, so if it's not as simple to say, okay, cut the cord, it's over. They have to replace him. And how do they do that? So he really does still control the agenda. I predict he'll be playing for them next year.
All right, and we'll talk about this but more.
Yeah, Bill Parcells, you know what? He'd hold Terry Glenn accountable, but that's a whole other issue. Bill Parcells has been out of coaching for 18 months now. Although he misses the NFL, he says he's not going back. I caught up with the Big Tuna at Haverhill Country Club earlier this week for a little reminiscing.
We intercepted that pass back there. Did you know that? The one you were offside on?
He was the most demanding, intense, no-nonsense coach ever. Dwayne Charles Parcells. Bill, the Big Tuna. When he took a bite out of you, you felt it.
Cut it up in there, or I'll get me another punt return. I don't really give a Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's what you're going to be doing Sunday when we go to Seattle. You're going to be watching the game in New York on TV.
Did players fear you?
I don't know that. I think maybe earlier when I was worse than I was when I was here a few years back. Yeah, maybe. When I had a little axe to grind and I hadn't proven anything yet, maybe they did. Because I cut my second year as head coach, 45 guys on our team, we cut 23.
Wow.
So we had over 50% turnover. So there was a little fear that carried over for a while from that.
And he instilled fear in his coaches. He didn't spare them either.
Hey, don't tell me about the defensive coaches. Just watch the field goal kicker.
That worked for you, though, didn't it?
Yeah, but I never employed that deliberately. Now, if you weren't on time and you were lazy and you didn't want to lift weights, you didn't want to squat, you didn't want to do cleans, you didn't want to run, you didn't want to get in shape, you didn't want to, and I didn't think you liked football, then we were going to have a problem.
And Parcells accepted no excuses. None. One of the best lines you ever had was you asked Steve Diassi, what is wrong with Matt Barr? And his response was, he's sick, coach. And do you remember what your response was?
Barr's got a little flu. Yeah. Is he all right? Tell him to throw up on his own time.
Do you remember that?
Say that. I don't think so.
We have that on tape, Coach. We have that on tape.
I don't think so.
But players not only respected him, they loved him.
Teddy, Coach, how you doing, man? Oh, man. Oh, there's one of my guys there.
This is one of your guys.
My guys.
What's up?
He's looking pretty slim, isn't he?
He looks good.
Bilingual, too.
He looks good.
Brewski's bilingual, too. That's what he could call the signals in Spanish if he had to.
I did it a couple times in the game, but the guys just looked at me like, so I stopped it.
Really?
He's had a great career. He's doing great. Huh? Why wouldn't you like him? He's versatile. Great situation. Third down guy to have on your team right there. Bruce. Not on offense, Bruce. You can't catch cold. You dropped that fake punt.
What's that?
Did you drop the pass on? Did Megan? Who threw you the pass? Tupa threw you the pass, and you dropped that.
In the basket. Caught it. Bam.
Now it's all coming back to me now.
I'm telling you, Taylor Brock, boom, knocks it out, bang.
Drew Bledsoe. Out of all the quarterbacks you have coached, where does he rank?
He's in there. I like him. I always liked him. He was very young when I first started with him, so he was young. I wouldn't say the word immature, but he was immature as far as football went in his professional experience. But he's tough. He's always been tough. People underrate that tremendously. Hey, you had to throw him to the wolves a little bit.
I don't know if this is a fair question or not, but if you were still here, do you think the Patriots would have won a Super Bowl by now?
Oh, I don't know. That isn't a fair question because listen, there was a lot invested. I had a lot invested in that team. It was difficult for me to leave, although people might not believe that. It was difficult for me to leave there. And I know that it was a young team, and I know we would have been highly competitive for a few years.
You said it was difficult for you to leave. How difficult was it?
Hard because of what I did. You know, I had invested a lot in the team. You know, that was my blood there too. You know, it wasn't just somebody else's.
Bob Kraft, your relationship with him now, and how strenuous was it?
Hey, listen, that's history. It's over. And we all moved on. He moved on. I moved on. I don't see him much, but when I've seen him, it's been pleasant.
Is there ever a chance in your wildest imagination?
No, probably not, no.
You know what the question is already.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm done, and I've learned not to. I'm not trying to leave any doors open, but I said a year ago, I coached my last game. That's the way I feel.
Bill Parcells, you know what? I could have listened to him all day. He had more stories.
He has that magical presence. And if I was building a new stadium, who would I like to have on the masthead?
I've always said that in retrospect, in hindsight, I wish I had done one thing, or someone should have done this, which is to have taped every single press conference he had from the day one till the day he left, and put it together as a primer on football. And not only football, but just philosophy, some life stuff, but football. You would have extracted one way or the other more interesting observations and information about the NFL and how it works than any other source I can think of that was available to us in the 80s or 90s. It would have been an extraordinary thing.
I agree with you. And if you extrapolate him and apply it to the Terry Glenn situation, I think he would have kept Glenn here, and because he's interested in football players and what they do on the field, because he's had some bad apples play for him.
Well, it made him or break him. Well, would have made him or broken him, I'm sure. It would have been an interesting ongoing experience, because he caught 90 passes for him.
That's
missing
right.
2 games as a rookie in 1996. So the talent,
that was after the She-Con.
The talent is unquestioned, and he would have sought to extract that talent, or he would have just wound up, and Terry Glenn would have wound up on a discard pile.
Now, Steve, in the short time I have here, he said that he thinks Terry Glenn will be back playing for the Patriots next year. What do you think the Kraft dilemma is?
I think, Kraft's in a tight situation right now. Will McDonough said they can't afford to let him go, but I don't know if they can afford to keep him either. Bill Parcells, that comment that Parcells mentioned, that drove Terry Glenn. That took Terry Glenn to a whole nother level, and he held him accountable. So we'll see.
All right, up next, a Major League Baseball star from an East Coast team. Is he about to come out of the closet? Well, we'll tell you what that's all about.